Welcome to The Explainer. Now, if you're watching this during the day, you might actually want to pull the curtains. And if it's nighttime, well, maybe leave a light on for this one. Today, we're exploring a story that sits right on that really uncomfortable edge between a deeply human tragedy and the completely unexplainable. We are looking at a legendary artifact housed in Hokkaido, Japan. It's a seemingly innocent traditional child's toy that has basically been the center of whispered rumors, scientific debates, and spiritual reverence for well over a century now. Yep, we're talking about the famous Okiku Doll.
Okay, let's dive into this with Section 1, the doll that grows hair, which is currently housed at the Mannenji Temple in Japan.
So I want you to just sit back and seriously consider this question for a second. Can a doll's hair actually grow? Logically, scientifically, we know the answer absolutely has to be no, right? Hair is made of keratin. It requires a living biological follicle, blood flow, and active cells to grow. Yet for nearly a century, the caretakers of this specific doll have insisted that her hair is doing exactly that. And we aren't just talking about a millimeter or two here, but growing significantly over time to the point of demanding literal physical haircuts. How is that even possible?
To really understand the mystery, we have to look past the supernatural shock value and look at the actual foundation of the story. As you'll see here, the phenomenon is rooted in profound belief and intense grief. This isn't just some cheap scare or a story about a cursed object out for revenge. It's a story about a family that lost something incredibly precious to them, and how a simple, inanimate object became a vessel for their love, their sorrow, and perhaps something more.
Let's move on to Section 2, a tragic origin story. Let's strip away all that sensationalism and look at the very real people at the heart of this, the Suzuki family. Let's walk through this timeline together. Back in 1918, a 17-year-old boy named Eikichi Suzuki was visiting Sapporo. He bought this beautiful 40-centimeter tall doll with a traditional Okapapa bob cut, that really neat shoulder-length hairstyle with the fringe, and he got it as a souvenir for his 2-year-old sister, Kikuko. And Kikuko absolutely adored this thing. She named the doll Okiku, and the two were basically inseparable. She played with it, slept with it, treated it like a literal member of the family. But just a year later, in 1919, tragedy struck. During a severe outbreak of illness, and sources vary here, some say it was the Spanish flu, others mention a severe cold or yellow fever, little 3-year-old Kikuko passed away. Fast forward to 1938, as the family is preparing to move away due to the looming Second World War, they make a fateful decision to entrust the doll to the Mannenji Temple.
Now you might be wondering, what happened between Kikuko's tragic death and that eventual move to the temple? Well, Japanese burial customs of the time often dictated that a child's favorite belongings be placed in their casket to accompany them into the next life. But in the chaotic haze of sudden grief, the Suzuki family completely forgot to pack the Okiku doll. So, instead, they placed the doll on the household altar, right next to the urn containing Kikuko's ashes. They prayed to it every single day, essentially treating the doll as an extension of their lost little girl. And that is exactly when they noticed a chilling change.
Which brings us to Section 3, the Mannenji haunting. Guys, this is a truly hair-raising mystery. So over the years sitting on the family altar, the hair began to lengthen, but once it arrived at the temple, the phenomena really escalated. The hair, which was originally cut sharp right at the shoulders, grew wildly and unevenly, eventually reaching all the way down to the doll's knees. The monks, witnessing this firsthand, decided they had to act. They began to periodically trim the doll's hair to keep it manageable, and get this, that is a practice that continues to this very day. But it doesn't even stop at the hair. Some visitors and paranormal researchers claim to have actually witnessed the doll's facial expressions changing. And, perhaps most terrifyingly, its mouth allegedly opening slightly over the years to reveal these tiny, human-like teeth. 25 centimeters. That is about 10 inches. That is the actual length to which the doll's hair reportedly grew before the monks had to start giving it regular haircuts. I mean, really think about that for a second. A wooden and porcelain figure, sitting quietly in a little temple box, requiring actual monks to take shears to it because the hair literally will not stop growing. A priest at the temple even claimed that the spirit of Okiku appeared to him in a dream, specifically requesting that her hair be trimmed. All right, let's pivot to Section 4, Science versus the Supernatural. It's time to bring in some logic and try to explain the impossible. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we contrast the two major viewpoints. The supernatural claim is pretty straightforward. Kikuko's soul is inside the doll, continuing to live and grow. But the scientific reality looks closely at the actual manufacturing process of Taisho-era dolls. You see, high-quality dolls back then often used real human hair. The process involved taking a very long strand of human hair, folding it completely in half, and gluing it directly into the holes of the doll's scalp. So scientists hypothesize that over the decades, as that old glue deteriorates in the human temple environment, the folded strands of hair slowly slip out of the scalp, creating the very convincing illusion of hair growing longer and unevenly. But hold on, because that scientific theory, it isn't exactly bulletproof. Critics of the slipping glue hypothesis point out some pretty massive flaws. First off, if a strand of hair is folded in half, it can really only ever double its original length once it fully slips out, and after that, it would simply fall right off the doll. It certainly couldn't continue to grow endlessly for nearly 100 years, requiring repeated, ongoing haircuts. Furthermore, the sheer volume of the hair growth reported over the decades really stretches the absolute limits of that deteriorating glue theory. If it's just slipping, well, eventually the doll would be totally bald, yet Okiku retains a full, thick head of hair.
So, let's look at Section 5, the psychology of haunted objects. We are going to explore the powerful intersection of grief and belief.
If science struggles to fully explain it, we really must look to the cultural context. And this brilliantly illustrates a concept found in traditional Japanese animism and folklore known as tsukumogami. This is the core belief that everyday objects, once they reach 99 years of age or are just deeply, deeply cherished, can actually gain a spirit or a soul. They essentially become self-aware. So, for a family steeped in this cultural understanding, interpreting the doll as a living vessel wasn't some wild stretch of the imagination, it was a culturally supported reality. Which brings us to a profoundly beautiful observation from our source material on the nature of these so-called haunted household objects. It says, "When one believes a thing is conscious, one treats it with tenderness." The Suzuki family, completely devastated by the loss of their 3-year-old daughter, needed somewhere to put all their overwhelming love and grief. By treating the doll as conscious, by genuinely believing Kikuko was inside it, they were able to continue caring for their child. It was a deeply beautiful, distinctly human coping mechanism. And those monks at the temple, by continuing to cut the hair and care for the doll, well, they're honoring that tenderness.
So what does this all mean for us? It leaves us at the end of our explainer with a choice. Are we just looking at a fascinating century-long optical illusion caused by old glue, failing adhesive, and the immense power of suggestion? Or, in a world full of mysteries we have yet to truly understand, is it possible that a little girl's love for her favorite toy was so incredibly powerful that it defied death itself, leaving a piece of her soul behind in a Hokkaido temple? I'll leave you to decide what you truly believe about the Okiku doll. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep your curiosity alive.